And now time for our final inductee of the evening from the class of 1980, Kevin Joseph Lannon. Kevin enlisted in the United States Army right after graduating from Alter. He was a successful, skilled medic for the Airborne Rangers, the elite special operations unit of the Army, and became a sergeant in only 3 years. Kevin made an unconventional choice for a young man in 1980, one of self-sacrifice and extreme discipline. While many of his classmates were preparing for their senior year in college, he was preparing for battle and made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Classmate and good friend John Demansky said that Kevin Lannon came to know the Dean of Students quite well during his time at Alter. Kevin just couldn't squelch his rebellious nature. John believes it was this same nature that led Kevin to the United States Army upon graduation from Alter, and later to save the lives of numerous soldiers, friend or foe, as a Ranger medic. John will always remember how Kevin cared, loved, and served others by offering only the best of himself. Right now we have a video we'd like you to see.
We introduce Kevin Lannon, class of 1980. While 9 out of 10 Alter graduates pursue college studies, Kevin chose an unconventional career path. He enlisted in the U.S. Army for a medical specialist assignment, a medic. Kevin successfully completed a fast track of basic training, advanced infantry training, and a basic medic course. He was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. He was challenged by a superior to pursue the Airborne Rangers. The Rangers are the elite group of soldiers in the U.S. Army. Their motto is, Rangers lead the way. Kevin completed the Ranger indoctrination program and was a 282 Ranger School graduate. He attended 2 Special Forces Aidman courses as a Ranger. The second course condensed the first year of medical school into 29 weeks. The course taught the skill sets required to perform life-saving surgery on the field of battle. Kevin was assigned to the 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Infantry, A Company, 3rd Platoon, also known as the Earth Pigs.
The United States of America presents the Bronze Star Medal, Valor, to Sergeant Kevin J. Lannon, United States Army, for heroic actions while assigned to Company A, 2nd Battalion, Rangers, 75th Infantry, during armed combat on the island of Grenada from 25 October to 27 October 1983. On 25 October 1983, Sergeant Lannon's parent unit, the 2nd and 75th Rangers, was the spearhead element of an assault force which parachuted into the island of Grenada while under enemy fire. He worked himself to the designated assembly area, but was unable to join his own unit due to a mission change after the jump. Of his own violation, he joined the 1st and 75th Rangers because they had no medic assigned and were taking heavy enemy fire. At great risk to himself, he stayed with the battalion for 2 days, continually exposing himself to intense enemy fire. 5 men were killed and 14 wounded in those 2 days, and Sergeant Lannon assisted as a medic and as an infantryman during the entire time. His only concern was of his fellow soldiers, and he was directly responsible for saving several lives by providing immediate medical care. Sergeant Lannon's heroic actions are in keeping with the finest traditions of the military and reflects great honor upon him, the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and the United States Army. Signed, John O. Marsh, Jr., Secretary of the Army. I want to take the opportunity to thank you and the many people that have made this possible to remember a great warrior, a Ranger medic in Sergeant Kevin Lannon. The 4 best years of my entire military career was serving with the Rangers. It's really hard to explain the teamwork, the spirit corps, the gung-ho attitude you have in accomplishing a mission. I met Sergeant Kevin Lannon November of 1981. And from that point on, I could tell right away that he had the spirit, the guts, the intestinal fortitude to take what it took to be a great Ranger medic. And in short, I'd like to tell you what I remember in a creed. Sergeant Kevin Lannon was an American airborne Ranger medic. He was a warrior. He served the people of the United States of America, and he lived the Army values. Sergeant Lannon always placed the mission first. He would never accept defeat. He never quit, and he never leave a fallen comrade. Sergeant Lannon was disciplined, physically and mentally tough, trained and proficient in his Ranger tasks and drills. He always maintained his arms, his equipment, and himself. He was an expert and he was a professional. He stood ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the enemies of the United States of America. Sergeant Kevin Lannon was and still is today a guardian of our freedom and American way of life. I thank you again for this opportunity. It's deeply touching. When I first come into a unit, and months after I've been in a unit, I always talk about Sergeant Kevin Lannon as that young soldier that had the inspiration to be the best. I have on my wall here Sergeant Kevin Lannon plaque. I wear on my ID tag. I have 3 ID tags, and one happens to be Sergeant Kevin Lannon's. I will always remember him. I thank you for keeping his memory. May God bless you, and I wish you all the best in your future. We do have the best Army, and we do and will succeed in whatever endeavors we have. Thank you.
Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, Here I am, send me.
Right now, we'd like to recognize Kevin's mother, Ann, if she would stand up, please. And accepting the induction plaque, his sister Mary Ann, please come forward.
Hello. Oh gosh, I'm not sure what I can say after that. I was given the opportunity to view that before we came here tonight, and I wish I had. You can imagine the pride that I feel when I look at that beautiful and familiar face. To see it larger than life like that is so gratifying. I really can't put into words. John, thank you for your hard work on that video. It shows. I first became aware that Kevin was going to be possibly nominated for this award last summer. I had a very familiar voice on the answering machine who didn't even need to say his name. When I heard his voice, it was immediately recognizable as John Demansky. And he proceeded to tell me that he was working on this nomination on behalf of his friend and my brother. At the end of the conversation, we hung up the phone, and I was kind of tickled because I thought about Kevin being recognized at Alter High School. And when John told me that Sister Katie was part of the panel, I thought, well, that does that. I won't be going to Dayton to accept anything because I know for certain that Kevin was probably responsible for bringing Sister Katie to her knees multiple times in prayer, asking that God help this young boy seek to finish his education elsewhere besides Alter High School. But Sister Katie, you're not alone. I believe my mother went down on her knees at the age of 2, and I honestly don't believe she came back up until he was lovingly placed in the hands of God. And it's at that time that she knew he would be safe. There's so much that I could tell you about my brother. He was, if you didn't know him, you really missed out. There are a couple of things that I want to relay to you. At the end of that clip there was a quote from Isaiah, and pardon me, I'm not very versed in scripture, but the gist of it is, the Lord asked Isaiah, "Whom shall I send?" And Isaiah said, "Here I am, send me." And what many of you may not know about my brother's time in Grenada was Kevin at that time, his home base was at Fort Lewis, Seattle, Washington, and he was actually he was away from his base and away from his battalion. He was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is not far from where I live today, and he was in an elite special forces medic school, and he was under direction, under no certain terms, to leave that post. He was to finish his schooling. And as Kevin always did, finding out things he shouldn't find out, he found out that all of his buddies were being deployed from Fort Lewis to Savannah, Georgia. And Kevin wanted to go. He wanted to go where his buddies were going to be, and he was going to be with them. So he put on his blue jean cutoff shorts, a pair of flip-flops, a definitely non-governmental issue blue REI backpack medic bag, and he hitchhiked from Fort Bragg, North Carolina to Savannah, Georgia, where he showed up and was told that he was in a whole lot of trouble, and Grenada would have been a better place for him to be. And they reluctantly allowed him to enter the gates. A personal friend and his direct commanding sergeant allowed him to enter because they were in such dire need of skilled medics. And Kevin was skilled, he was well respected. And at that moment, when he made the choice to leave North Carolina and go to be with his buddies in Georgia, that really changed the moment. That was his moment of fate. And I begrudge him not one bit. Kevin did exactly what he wanted to do. And you can't help but love and respect somebody for that. Another thing about Kevin was he truly was loved by everyone who met him. I received a letter just this past week from a former classmate who couldn't be here tonight, and he so eloquently expressed his love and devotion for my brother, and my brother's ability to love everyone around him and to include everyone around him, no matter where they were from, how popular they were, where their father worked, or what kind of car they drove. And when Kevin had a very special gift, and when Kevin spoke to you, he engaged you, and he looked at you, and he made you feel that you were the most important person in the world at that moment in time. And I can tell you this, the last conversation I had with my brother, I was a 15-year-old girl. And after you spent some time with Kevin, you felt that you had been heard. And as a 15-year-old girl with braces and bangs and putting weight on in all the wrong places, it meant the world to feel that you'd been heard. It was a gift. He was given it, and he used it. When I was asked if I would come here and speak tonight, terrified of public speaking, and I lost my speech nonetheless, I thought I needed to be here for 3 reasons. The first reason is to let you know that this award did not come to fruition because of the work and effort of Kevin's family. It came to be because of a promise made from one friend to another over 20 years ago now, on a cold day in November at his graveside. And John Demansky was that friend. He made a promise, and I know that he must be filled with such pride to see this moment come to reality. And John will be the first one to tell you that he could not have done it without the love and dedication and support of his beautiful wife, Rosemary. And we feel so blessed and honored to be here with you tonight to celebrate this. Coming here, it's been 16 years since I left Ohio, and I am seeing so many familiar, beautiful, loving faces, and to share this night with you is truly gratifying. It is special, and it really is it allows us, I think, as a family to take a deep breath and to say, at last, you all know what we knew for so long. At the time of Grenada, there was not support like there is now for our soldiers. And it was a lonely time, and it was a difficult time. But to be here just kind of lets us exhale as a family, and we feel proud, and we feel honored and humbled to be here among you all. It's family. It's where we came from so many years ago. One other thing that I wanted to let you know is I've just totally lost my train of thought, and I'm so sorry. I can tell you that the last thing you want to hear before you stand up for a speech is that, honey, you look a little pale. Could you put on some lipstick? Thanks, Mom. Great. Oh, that's what I wanted to tell you. Sometimes when you live through really horrible things in life, you kind of look back, and times like this cause us to reflect, and you wonder, how did I ever get through that time? How did we ever make it? And, I have to let you know that the reason we all went to Alter High School was because of my mother's belief in a Catholic education and her love for God. And I have to let you know that even in the face of losing her second-born son, my mother never once lost her steadfast faith. She never once, for even a moment, was angry with God. And I'm here to tell you, for those of you who knew us when, that we are okay. And that faith and a love of God and time really can heal all wounds. I need to ask you tonight, I would feel very remiss if I didn't. The gentleman who was on the videotape is now in Iraq. I had him in my home for an early Thanksgiving dinner with friends before he deployed. He will be in Fallujah for 1.5 years. It's a long time. So this is not a time to be political. It's not a time to question who you are. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. I don't care if you are liberal or conservative, and it doesn't concern me whether or not you believe that we should be in Iraq, but it is my concern that you support the men and women who are there, and they are separated from their families, they are living with financial hardships, and they are paying a price for our unprecedented freedom with which we live in this country. So I ask you to remember them. And please remember the families who will get that awful news that their loved one may not come home. I feel that I can stand here and truly tell you that I do understand the price that sometimes has to be paid for the freedom with which we live in this country. But those men and women, they need your support and they need your love. So the next time you hear of a family who is now in distress, maybe then you could raise your hand and say, "Here I am, Lord," and reach out and help that family. God bless you all, and thank you for having us here and welcoming us home. Thank you.
Mary Ann, you didn't need that speech. That was beautiful. Very from the heart. I mean, that was fantastic. Well, just as we end assemblies at altar with Al Early, it's time to and our dinner tonight with Al Early. And right now, I'd like to introduce Al. Al, it's all yours.
At the end of every day, we have what we call a come to the office list. Not to embarrass anyone, but if you were up here speaking because you were inducted into the Hall of Fame and you didn't take your award with you, would you please come to the office after this? I didn't do a very good job of getting those gifts to people. When I was sitting at the table before, Kirsten saw me making some notes and things because I kind of am supposed to capture the evening a little bit, actually the whole day. And she said, "Can you really talk from that?" And I said, "Well, of course." Oh, that's Brian's forecast for tomorrow. I'm sorry. It's just put away. I'd like to first of all, say thanks to some people who already had thanks said to them. Bill Ryer, who came into my office, I think about 2 hours and 15 minutes after I arrived at Alder and said, "What do you think about starting a Hall of Fame?" Very persistent man that got us here a couple years ago, and because of Bill's persistence, we're here tonight. Sister Katie, who worked with Bill tirelessly, endlessly over the years to develop this into what it's become. The advancement staff, Julie mentioned them before and what they've done to put this together. And the selection committee, who wants to remind people that we're starting on next year's class now. I think there's a form available if it's on our website, if not by calling the advancement office, and certainly it will be out in the round table a little bit later. When I got to school this morning, in my mailbox, and I'd been there pretty late yesterday afternoon, it was pretty well cleaned out, was a single letter in there, and I thought, okay, what's this? And when it's marked personal, you kind of wonder what's going on, and certainly I opened it up and I went, okay, great way to start the day. Shortly after that, somebody said, "Well, this is your big day," talking about the Hall of Fame. And I, probably still reeling a little bit from the letter, said, "Well, it's not really my big day, it's their big day." And truer words were probably never spoken by me all day long. It is about the people who were honored this evening. It is about their accomplishments. It is about what they've done with their lives, the way they've lived out their faith, and the way they continue to live those lives, either here or with God. On Wednesday, I had a little chat with the seniors. Every once in a while, you have to do that. There was some good news and some not so good news. Part of the good news was that I had received several letters complimenting them about the way they, as a senior class pretty much, so and actually as a student body, but particularly the seniors, had conducted themselves at the funeral for Andy Strobar, one of our seniors who was killed in an automobile accident on the 21st of December. The funeral director came up to me at the funeral and then sent a letter just almost in awe of the way these high school kids had conducted themselves. So I had to compliment them. I had to pass that on. We had to talk a little bit about behavior at a basketball game with a rival a couple weeks ago. That happens from time to time. And talk about one game that's coming up. Public relations are important, folks. And then there was a third point to my meeting with them, this being their final semester at Alder High School. And after 37 years, you kind of know what they are going through. Not each and every one of them, but certainly out there, what each and every one of them are experiencing somewhat together. I told them to take care of themselves. And as I was sitting here and Mary Ann was talking, I thought, what a coincidence that what I told them is the last thing that we saw tonight. Taking care of people, taking care of each other. And when she talked about John, it just touched me, because then all of a sudden, John to me is an older parent, but he's also an older alum. That thing I was trying to talk to the seniors about also when I got finished with my 3 points about watching and listening and processing what they were going to hear today when the Hall of Fame members met with them, really came out. What I had told them to look for was certainly there. I told them that they were going to see all kinds of different stories, They were going to hear things about athletic accomplishments and academic accomplishments. They were going to hear about faith and where the role it plays in people's lives. They were going to hear altar experiences over the years that are very much like their own. And they did that today, as you did this evening. It's, as Mike said this evening, it's what Catholic education is all about. Awful lot of humility was up here this evening. And yet, for everyone who was up here and everyone who was represented, yeah, there were great lessons and great teachers and great friends and great experiences that they had at Alder High School and beyond. But the one thing that I told the kids is what these inductees have all done. They went on to be their own self-determiners. They went on to take all that experience, some of it good and some of it not so good, but to live a life that's certainly carrying out to the fullest those academic abilities, those athletic abilities, other talents, but most importantly, inside of every one of these people who was here tonight is that spiritual component, those values that we talk about, the values of loving God and loving their fellow man. This is the beginning of Catholic Education Week, Catholic Schools Week across the nation. And we've had this assembly and we've had this at the end of Catholic School Week in the past. It's just so happened that it came a week later and it's tied in with the Cage Classic and some things. And so we're kicking off Catholic Education Week with our students with this assembly, with the assembly today and the induction this evening. And I can't think of a better way to do it than to take so many diverse, different role models who all have gone through the same experience as our kids are, namely an Alder education, tough academics, coaches who yell sometimes too much, sometimes encourage and love, teachers who do the same, parents who prod, who make sacrifices, also that, like our inductees tonight, keeping in mind the plan of God, they each can be like our inductees tonight, all they can be. And if I remember correctly, that is what the Army says, be all you can be. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. Good night, and God bless you. It's back on. If you could, the inductees, they're requested to come up to the podium. We need one group picture. So, Hall of Fame inductees, please come forward.